Okay, welcome to Bicester Technology Studio. My name's Roland Howard, I'm the principal, and I'm going to tell you a few things about the school because you've expressed an interest in coming along. So I'd like to tell you a few things and at the end, take any questions. If during this PowerPoint you've got any questions, um, just note them down in the Q&A box, which should be along the bottom of your screen. If they can be general questions, that's better. And if they're particular questions that maybe only apply to you, if you send an email to Sam Thompson, and you'll see her email address attached. But if they're general questions or questions that will apply to lots of people, please put them in the Q&A. Well, the Bicester Technology Studio is part of the Activate Learning Education Trust, and we're part of the Bicester Learning Campus. Now that's made up of the Bicester Technology Studio, which is this, and the Bicester School, which is the bigger school next door, where I'm also deputy head and I'm principal here. That really reflects the great cooperation between the two schools. Closer links, loads of teachers teach across both schools, which gives economies of scale and it gives much more choice in relation to options. At the Technology Studio, we recruit in year 10 and we specialise in entrepreneurship and enterprise, sciences and technology and vocational subjects. We try and have a green angle, or we're going to try and have a green angle on all the things we do because we recognise that that is vitally important. In relation to the Bicester School, which is the other part of the learning campus, they recruit in year 7 like normal schools and in year 12. But those year 12 students will actually be working in the Bicester Technology Studio in the modern, stylish, attractive environment with lots of facilities. So although they're in the Bicester Technology Studio building, technically the sixth form is now part of the Bicester School. But you can join in year 12 or year 10, the campus. And the sixth form, which I'm not really talking about today, but that will offer A-levels and BTECs at level 3. Okay, next slide, please. So the year 10 curriculum, we've been able to make it much broader in most ways because of our cooperation with the Bicester School. So the core subjects here are wider than in most schools. Normally the core just refers to English, maths and science. But here it includes business, and most other schools would also have PE and PSHE, which is personal social health education. But we also have work experience, which has been very difficult this year, but I'll say more about that later. But that's a core thing that's different about the Technology Studio than most schools. The other subjects we do, so these are options, these could vary slightly, which is why there's a question mark at the bottom, because they could increase, or it might be that one or two things there we aren't able to offer. It depends on numbers. But geography, history, languages we're able to offer for the first time. RS, art and drama for the first time, and indeed history for the first time. We're not totally sure whether we can offer a GCSE in computing, but we have done this year and we are hopeful that we'll be able to carry on with that. In terms of the applied and vocational, we've got digital IT, sport, travel and tourism, creative and digital media, and probably food technology, and maybe some other subjects as well. Health and social care might be one of them. So you can see that the options are broadening, but no schools at this point in the year can say definitely what they will offer. We can say what we've offered based on experience and our current staffing, but staffing could change and it could offer more opportunities and it could offer less. You may have noticed that engineering is no longer there on the applied, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. It could be, but we can't promise it. So our specialisms, really that's kind of a way of saying what's special about us, what's different. Next slide, please. Well, enterprise, which is everyone here does business studies. It gives lots of skills that they'll need for life, about running businesses, running your household, knowing how to deal with finances, knowing how to present well and professionally, the importance of deadlines and organization and those sorts of things. But also a specialism is employer engagement. Now, our intention this year had been that we were going to have about a week of work experience every term, certainly from this term and the summer term, and then running into year 11. That really hasn't been possible because of COVID, risk assessments and people pulling out, and that hasn't been possible. So we over offered last year because we didn't anticipate that things were going to be as bad as they are, as long as they are. That is our intention next year, to offer 3 weeks of different work experiences rather than one long one going through the year. We want students to experience different types of work environment to help them understand how adults work and to help direct them in relation to their future career choices. The other thing that's a specialism is sustainability. For a long time, the Technology Studio has kind of talked about green technology and green credentials. Well, I want that to be really central to our curriculum. I want it to go into really all areas of the curriculum. It's relevant. It's as relevant in English and in RS as it is in computing or other things, because it's something that's going to change our lives, and it's something that we've got to face up to, and it's something that's got consequences in virtually all areas of the curriculum. Next slide, please. What else is special about Bicester Technology Studio? Well, I can honestly say it's a community. It really is a friendly, small community. Everyone knows everyone. Staff really know their students. In the Bicester School, where I still work as deputy, there are 1,200 students. Here we've got more like 200 in the building, and it just makes it so much more easier for staff to have good one-to-one relationships. We've also got smaller classes, and that may change over time, but we've got smaller classes, significantly smaller classes than most schools. So our classes are about 15 to 25 rather than 25 to 30, which is a real bonus. That's partly because the classrooms are actually physically smaller, but it's part of the way of it being a more personal education over here. I think it's fair to say, just to add to that we are in some ways more professional. It seems a more adult environment. That doesn't always seem the case, but generally that is true. This feels like a bit more of a college environment than your traditional school. Having said that, we have very clear boundaries. Next slide, please. Now, I'm just going to talk to you about the join at year 10, because actually the join in the sixth form, technically you're joining, although you're in this building, that is technically, and although I will teach them, that is technically part of the Bicester School. So joining in year 10 at 14. Well, we've got 40 places available. It could be slightly over for next September. And to apply for a place, You need to complete the online application form, which some of you will have done already, or you can apply via the County Council. They're closed at the moment, but they will reopen, and you can do the online application to us or contact Sam Thompson, whose details you'll get later if you haven't already applied. I'm assuming that virtually everybody here has applied, and that's why you've got this invite. Next slide, please. So we're aiming for every student. Those that succeed in their studies, which really is the vast majority, very few don't, will go into further education, college, higher education, doing a degree course, I guess, in a uni, an apprenticeship, or employment that is relevant to what they've been doing and that suits them. We want good outcomes for our students. And in relation to the employment, you will have been working with 3 companies, and that could also relate to the apprenticeship route as well. Next slide, please. So, behaviour. As I said, it feels more like a college, but we also know that 14-year-olds are 14-year-olds and that boundaries are really important. And we think boundaries are important for all children and indeed all adults. So as adults, we will be positive. We'll expect the best, but we'll be firm and we'll be clear. We're not kind of easygoing about those things. We're not uptight, we're encouraging, but we don't ignore things, because I think that's where things slip. And the rules for students are really to do with accepting responsibility for your actions, but also for your work, for you making good life decisions now that will improve your prospects later, and for you making good life decisions that are respectful of others. And that's the next rule, or the next principle, really. And resilience. It's really important to be determined and resilient, to have high standards. And so you can see that reflected in the school values. I mean, they're really very similar. Respect, determination, and high standards. Excellence. So it's probably not like a college in that way, in that we do monitor, we do follow up, we do take a lead in giving students boundaries, and we do expect work in, whereas in a college, students are older and they have to take more responsibility, and it's a more laissez-faire or relaxed environment. We're still a school, remember, so we will be demanding real hard work and really great standards, because you're 14 rather than 17 or 18. Next slide, please. This is something that we really believe in. The growth mindset is better than a fixed mindset. Let me explain that a little bit. In a growth mindset, failure is not a terrible thing. A failure to learn something or to achieve well in, say, a test is an opportunity to improve. And when you fail, that's when you learn. These are the bits I don't understand. This is what I'm not getting. Oh, yes, I struggle with that, and I struggle with that because of this. And that's when the real learning happens. A growth mindset also approaches with the idea that if you try hard, if you keep going, you can learn about any area. I'm not saying that I can be a great neuroscientist, but I can learn about those things through effort. So challenges and failures are opportunities to grow with a growth mindset. And it is your effort and your attitudes that will determine how you stretch yourself, how you develop yourself, and ultimately the results that you get. Rather than seeing the success of others as something to be embarrassed by. We see it as something to challenge ourselves with a growth mindset, with a mindset that is open. And we like to try new things and welcome feedback. I'm a mean marker in some ways. My essays, I'm an English teacher. Essays are covered in kind of my scrawl. And I'll be pointing out how kids need to, what they're doing wrong, as well as giving praise for what they've achieved in and what I really like. But the learning occurs really in what they're doing wrong and what to do instead. A fixed mindset's almost the opposite. A fixed mindset sees failure as a measure and a limit of your abilities. Oh, I didn't pass the 12 plus. That means I'm not in the top stream if you're unfortunate enough to live in a place where they do the 12 plus. That's a fixed mindset. The mindset that says, oh, I'm either great at something or I'm not. Now, we do have aptitudes, that's true. I'm not particularly tidy, but I do know if I work at it, if I work at my handwriting, for instance, I can get better. And I do. Not in all areas all the time, you understand, but effort is what makes a difference. A fixed mindset is fixed because it has the idea that your abilities are unchanging. Well, that's not true. For years, I couldn't speak Spanish. Started learning about 10 or 15 years ago. Didn't get much help, but I did a GCSE in a year and an A-level in a year. Practiced. And I had a quite long conversation with a Spanish insurance company today in Spanish. I get better by effort. That is not beyond me. Another thing with fixed mindset, when we get frustrated and like, oh, I can't do this, we just give up. Well, that's not the approach for growth mindset. The growth mindset has more resilience, more willingness to try and really work out what's wrong, not see yourself as a failure, but think, okay, what have I got to learn? And even though it might be hard to learn, you'll get there. Fixed mindset says any feedback is like a personal attack. Well, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's an opportunity. And a fixed mindset tends to stick to where you know you're good. I've seen this a lot with people. They say, oh, I'm good at this, I'm no good at that. Even in my own family, I've seen people say, oh, I'm not very academic. I don't believe that. Well, some people they may not be, but I've seen it said by people who really could be. It's just they've had a bad experience and they're sticking to what they know they can do. And actually, I think as human beings, we need to challenge ourselves to remain open and to keep making an effort. Which brings me on to super secrets for success. Next slide, please. Okay, well, really, this is the same thing said again. Hard work, dedication, passion, questioning, that's really important. Self-discipline, failure. You'll know why that's important from the last slide. Resilience. And we also want people to be really good attenders and punctual, and to know when to ask for questions and to question. Questioning is such a vital thing in all areas of life. It opens things up. It keeps us open rather than narrow and confined and on our little railway lines as we shuffle off this mortal coil. Next slide, please. Dress code. Well, we want professional dress. We want people looking smart. So it's not like a jeans and t-shirts place at all. It's a suit and a tie, shoes, not trainers. And yeah, it's formal business dress. That might be smart casual, that's okay, but not casual. It's a kind of adult business-like environment. We are occasionally flexible because obviously if there's cultural and religious beliefs, That's not an issue. Sometimes when kids are breaking that guidance, someone like me makes a decision. But I try to be nice, but I don't try to be that flexible always in that, because sometimes kids take the mickey. And that prepares them well for the work environment. Next slide, please. Okay, this probably will have come through already. We want our students to be independent. We want to fill their knowledge gaps. We want them to engage in wider reading. We want them to be motivated and curious and accountable. We want them to understand what they do and do not know. We want to address their own weaknesses and raise their achievement. And actually, we want them to take the environment seriously in relation to the wider world. We want them to have more knowledge about what we're doing to the planet and be challenged by that and inspired by that and educated about that. Next slide, please. Okay, so what do you do? Well, a way of getting a positive attitude to work is giving them some space to do it. It's enabling them to break things down into chunks of time so that, okay, I'm doing French for this long, I'm doing DT for this long, I'm doing digital IT for this long. And if they can do more than 30 minutes, fine. But building up the length of time is good. Really, really, really vital is getting rid of phones and other social media, if at all possible, during that time, because it's so easy to get distracted. It might be that they need the internet via a computer. Well, that's so be it. But to have social media off during those times is so vital, because it's only through protracted periods of concentration that we really get good results. If it's like 2 or 3 sentences or 2 or 3 parts of the drawing, another distraction, then come back to it, the work just isn't as good. The thinking hasn't progressed in a proper and full concentrated way, so it won't be as good. Snacks and drinks, when appropriate, keep people hydrated, and try and encourage your children to balance work with play, work with sport, work with socializing, work with computer games, but take charge of the balance and encourage them to take charge of that balance. Next slide, please. So independence is guiding, not instructing, not doing it for them, but encouraging them or breaking it down for them, to use you as a sounding board, helping the right atmosphere, somewhere where they can focus. I think we've already said that. I would say on the guidance thing, I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm not guiding you about asking for your phone whilst you're doing your homework. That can be a kind of imperative or an instruction. But in relation to the learning, give them hints if you know about the area, but don't just tell them the answers. Explain it to them by all means, but don't just tell them the answers, because that won't be good learning. Next slide, please. Now, this is the journey to Bicester Technology Studio. I'm not going to go through it, but it's there on the slide, which you'll be sent, which will show you what stage you're at and what the route is to receive and gain a place here. Finally, the next slide, please. The deadline for applications is the 1st of February. We will send out offers within 2 weeks of that. And then you will accept within 4 weeks of receiving your offer. We do understand you might have other places that you're looking at. And the meetings with yours truly will be in the next 2 weeks. And unfortunately, they're just going to be via Teams at the moment. We hope to offer some people meetings proper meetings later on. But at the moment, they're starting tomorrow. For some people, they'll be via Zoom, which I'm going to do from home tomorrow. So I'll see some of you then. Are there any questions and answers that have come up? I'll do my best.
We have had a couple in, sir, and they've followed the same kind of vein. So we've got one that, is there a certain amount of lessons in a day, and do we operate at normal school hours? So do you want to take that one, or shall I take it?
You're welcome to take it. This is Steph, the assistant head. You can answer that, Steph.
Brilliant. So historically, to date, we were very different in the respect of we stayed open till 5. From September, it will be till 3, and we have 5 formal hours, teaching hours throughout the day. So we will finish at 3 across the board. There's one here, sir, of how do you decide who gets a place if there are more than 40?
Okay, well, basically, we can't take many more because the building's only so big. But if a good interview and a good reporting, we're open to anybody basically until we're full. So we'll be looking for students that have maybe experience of that relates to our specialisms or a particular interest in business or the environment or sciences or technology. But we are open to everybody, and yeah, so that's why we look at reports, we look at and we want to talk to you, about who you are, and what makes you tick.
Fab, brilliant. Thank you, sir. There's another one here. I think you've already answered this within your main talk. Will engineering be an option for year 10?
Currently, it won't. That's just a shortage of teachers, I'm afraid. That may change, and I hope it changes, but we've offered engineering for 4 years, and in that time, we haven't had stable staffing at all. And so students haven't received the level of teaching that I would expect of them. At the moment, we've got a brilliant person offering it, but he wants to retire. And he doesn't want to continue next year. So we are looking, but we cannot guarantee engineering will be there. The technology subjects are digital IT, creative digital media, probably food technology, and sometimes some other practical subjects. It's a shame because DT, design technology, used to be such a core of the school curriculum, but since it was turned into an exam by the current government, actually, teachers have just disappeared, and it's a shame because I really believe that practical education is absolutely valid, but engineering is a tough one to fill, a very tough one.
Brilliant, thank you, Scott. Another one, sort of on similar lines, I'm sort of presuming that this is a subject that, because of what they are already taking, please could you tell me what happens if one of the GCSE subjects is psychology? Do they switch to another subject?
What happens if
one of their GCSE subjects is psychology? So I'm presuming they are already doing psychology. What happens when they come to us?
Well, it'd be very unusual to do psychology in year 9. But if you've got subjects that don't match with us, in Key Stage 3 in year 9, well, that's okay. Actually, it's not a problem at all. It may mean that you would drop those subjects, but you would still be able to take on new subjects. If you haven't done Spanish, for instance, you couldn't take on Spanish at GCSE level, but that would be the same in any school. You'd need to have done the basics in languages to continue with them. But it would be very unusual for somebody to be doing psychology in year 9, because it's, unless they're doing it at GCSE and they've started the GCSE early, in which case then they could go straight into it in year 10 here. Yeah, but otherwise, generally in many subjects, GCSE is considered a new start. But some experience is good, but there's no real issue there. Yeah, I don't think that's a
Thank you. I think that will be one that when you have your one-to-ones, that you can explore a bit more in your one-to-one coming up over the next week. A nice simple one and straightforward. Other than the Bicester school, is there other schools that are going to be joining?
Is there other schools that we're going to be working with?
No, as part of the Bicester campus. I think it was.
Oh no, it's the Bicester campus is the Bicester school and the technology studio. We're not looking to have a campus that's bigger than that, including, say, other schools locally. There's no plans to do that. Very occasionally in the past, if, say, Cooper School were offering an A-level that one of our students really wanted and we couldn't offer it, we might send them for a couple of lessons there. But that hasn't happened for a few years, but that's possible. But no proper merging of two schools, which is what's happening in September between the technology studio and the Bicester school.
Thank you. Here's quite a good one of what makes us different as a school as well. Do you consider accepting those that have had a bad experience in education and not currently achieving in school, bad reports, etc., but really want to learn and improve with new opportunities?
Yes, we do. We've got a number of examples where kids have had a bad experience for a number of reasons at old schools, and they've transformed themselves at the school they're visiting. We do have high standards of behaviour, though. But yeah, we've had several examples of young people who've come here from other schools locally where they've not really managed to get on, and it's really worked very well for them. And that's true in relation to special educational needs as well. Because of the smaller classes, special educational needs get a bit more attention here. Although I'm not saying we've got more Senko provision, because we haven't, but they get a bit more attention. But yes, we are open to all applicants, and and if we don't get it, if we don't get enough, then people will be offered a place. But because we've got lots of applicants, we've got to, we can't say that we're going to accept everyone.
Brilliant.
Next question.
How will we know if the question subjects will go ahead, i.e. health and social care?
Well, that's a great question, but unfortunately you won't know for a little while. And this is the same in all schools. It's unclear. No one can say, especially a small school, although the campus is big, but a small school, if they lose their, computing teacher or food technology teacher and they've got no other, they can try and get supply, which isn't always ideal, in that the teaching's not always as great, but we can't guarantee it, because if somebody in a small school, that you're especially vulnerable to that. Now we're part of the Bicester school, that is less true. We've got more safety in that there might be, well, there are 3 or 4 art teachers, for instance, so we know that we can offer that, and there are more than one people teaching health and social care, for instance. So I think we can't guarantee, because if 2 leave, we're a bit stuck and we can't recruit, we're stuck. But that's the same as all schools, and we will keep people posted on that. So we'll say to people, this is what's possible, this is what's not possible. We'll let them know of changes.
Thank you. What is the pass rate of the core subjects?
Core subjects, well, it's in, this is a slightly difficult because this year, obviously, it wasn't really done in the normal way, but we got the best ever results in English this year. I think approaching 60% higher grade and above. In the past, being quite honest, results haven't been good here. But they were much better in English. They were much better in maths as well, though not quite as good, I think, 55%. Business, Steph, you can comment on?
Business, again, we were at around about 90% that achieved the level 1 and above, but more than 70% at level 2 pass and above.
And science, it was 100% in triple science, and it was more like 50% in combined science. And that's because the more able students get taken out of triple science, combined science, or more able or more enthusiastic to do triple science, and therefore that brings the average as a whole in combined science down. So that's why that's about 50, but it moves the average up, which is why it's 100% in the triple science. That was the experience last year. Any other questions?
How many subjects can they choose?
Well, I think that's on the slides, and it could increase. On the slide that's entitled curriculum, that will give you a list of the subjects that we currently offer, and there may be some more, and there may be 1 or 2 things removed from that, depending on staffing. And we'll send that PowerPoint round to everyone.
Do you do interior design or textiles?
We don't do interior design. We have done textiles in the past. If that's something you wanted, put it down, because it might be. We have got a textiles teacher within the campus, so it might be possible, depending on the timetable, which is quite a big. But if there are lots of people saying textiles, then I dare say we could. That becomes more likely. If there were 2, we couldn't do it.
Okay, this one, I think I wasn't clear, obviously, when I was doing mine, so sorry. You mentioned the timing, but how many lessons are in a day? What does the standard timetable look like? So to just go over that, there are 5-hour blocks within a day. So you have trust time in the morning from 8:30. Then we have 2 1-hour lessons, break, another 2 1-hour lessons, lunch, and then an hour in the afternoon. I hope that, sorry, I wasn't being clear.
Yeah, the break is 40 minutes as well.
Yeah. What language do you teach? I currently do Spanish.
Para mí prefiero español, pero es posible. I like Spanish. We teach Spanish and French basically across the site. There's a little bit of sixth form Spanish goes on here. Most of it's taught in the Bicester school, but that's fine. Yeah, you'd be in a normal class.
If you don't get in, can you try another time, i.e. in year 11?
Yes, that's not impossible. But it's, you must apply this time, really. It's the trouble with joining halfway through a year is if we're full at the beginning, we're likely to be full at the end. And also, you might have some catching up to do because you spent year 10 doing a different syllabus or something. So get your applications in for year 10, unless you find you're moving here in year 11, and then do apply, and we try and squeeze as many in as we can. Anything else?
Do they integrate with the Bicester school students at break times?
Great question. And no, we don't. They're kept separate. It might be that students are moving from a lesson that they've had next door, but they wouldn't have their break there. They would come back here and have their break here.
What happens if my parents can't attend the meeting?
Send a request to Sam and we'll get a meeting. Somebody said they couldn't make before 5 o'clock. We can do one after 5. That's no problem.
Thank you. How long are the lessons? We've just done that. They're all an hour. Will you be able to keep us at our current target levels for GCSE?
Well, we hope so. But if you work and if your target levels are realistic, and you're working hard at your next school, we would definitely, of course, we'll aim for your target or above. Yeah, so that's a yes.
Are my parents supposed to be at the meeting?
Ideally, it's good if you and your parent is in the meeting, yes, but it's not impossible without. But it is impossible without the student.
Are there any after-school clubs?
Yeah, there are, but because of COVID, they've fallen behind a little bit. We've had an art club, we've had a games club, we've had several. We've got an eco school, we've got a science club, but it's been tough this year maintaining those. But yes, we do run clubs, and we think that's important as long as you've had a chance to eat your food.
So on the back of that one, and I can answer this one, do we have a football team? Unfortunately, as much as we would love to have one, to date we haven't, because we've never been able to get a full squad out. But there is always the possibility of being able to set up a 7-a-side team in and around the local area, but not necessarily to be able to enter local tournaments within the other schools. Okay, so last question. Are there options to stay behind school to complete homework, as I believe this was built into the school day previously?
Yes, there are. The school ends at 3, really, partly so that the bus times are the same with next door. But if students want to stay on for another hour working in one of the computer rooms or working quietly, there will always be staff here to allow that to happen.
Brilliant. Thank you, sir. That's all your questions.
Thank you. Well, I hope you got the information you needed. If you didn't, you can email Sam Thompson at bistertechstudio.org.uk, and you'll get the contact details on this PowerPoint, which will be sent to all attendees. Thanks very much and have a good evening. Bye-bye.